Hey guys, unmuted. So I figured I would lump day 7 and day 8 together because really it was the Jen McCabe show. Jen all the time, all Genination. And I'm only now just recovering with the help of much needed Coke Zero. Boston, and I mean this with all sincerity and brotherly love and sisterly love and Midwesternly love. What the hell is up with the GD lip smack? Is it taught in schools that you must start your every statement or any verbal, sentence with on a totally just observational note, Jen does appear as though she's tried to really soften her appearance this particular trial. Um, I will say I watched the first trial like am kind of doing this trial. I didn't have all of the, pretrial hearing, that kind of knowledge, but not knowing a lot of the players or information of the case, I did think that Jen McCabe styled herself incredibly harshly. She does have a fairly thin, angular face, and was very heavy on both the contouring, the darker hair, and the more, business professional look. This trial, she came in, she has obviously lightened her hair. She came in more of a mom, like, you know, a a high upper middle class mom going to Target kinda look, like, I'm here to impress, but not make you feel terrible about yourself, just, like, slightly horrible, like, how could I not get out of pajamas when she managed to get skinny jeans and, like, a blouse and a big old crucifix on? The one thing she ignored, and this is something that I do have because I was a former theater kid, not so much on stage, but definitely learning from different people behind the scenes. When foundation goes on sale, I usually will pick out, several shades that are not super off of my shade, but are either darker, lighter, have a different base. Yes, they aren't to match me. They are simply if I change my hair color, if I go with a darker color, I tend to go with a slightly darker base foundation because otherwise I look like Elvira. Um, so she continues to, I think, use the same tone and shade of bronzer that she did when she had the darker hair, which probably didn't look as harsh, but since she has lightened her hair, it now made her face look much more angular, harsher, and, um, it is a worry with a thinner face that you can, tip over to from high cheekbones to gaunt. So, um, it was hit and miss as far as, the softening. Now, the direct kind of same old, this was not much different than the last time. I will say that it is continue it continues to be noticeable how both Carrie and Jen, these 2 loving, compassionate best friends of John, continue to have nothing but contempt, derision, and almost aggression towards Karen's what I am going to honestly state, in my opinion, and you can disagree in the comments down below, her her genuine emotional distress, her lack of regulation, her, needing this pressured speech, this constant needing of reassurance, all of this, it continues to boggle my mind, because I think if I were telling this story, I would not wanna come across as so Kahunty, to be honest, especially if my whole persona, ego what I have built up in my ego is I'm the sports mom, I'm, like, the bestest person, I am, like, the nicest person you can meet, kind of like mom of all trades, sort of great, like, I am your mom that you call in emergency, I am mama bear. To go and show absolutely, just derision, contempt, and everything for Karen's mental state does not paint you in a sympathetic, empathetic light. Now, we were all just waiting, as you know, for Mr. Jackson to come on. And day 7, I will say, was fairly frustrating with the cross because it does seem like Jen has learned how to game the system a little bit. And by that, I mean, Jen, let me explain how every single question went with Jen McCabe and Alan Jackson. Did you testify about this, incident in a prior hearing or to an officer or to anything, this entire time? And Jen would say, I don't know. I talked to a lot of people. There's been a lot of hearings. Do you have the report or the transcripts of what I did so I could refresh my memory? And then Alan Jackson would say, well, do you have any recollection of saying anything? And she's like, I don't remember nothing except for what I do remember, which is like imperative. And she said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. And then she was like, Jen. Every single time we went through this. This is why her testimony took almost 2 full torturous days. So then she would get the transcript and he would tell her to read lines, 1 through this here. She would read all the pages in the report because she had to remember everything. Now, part of my, too type A to function kind of is impressed that for once a witness is carefully looking at everything and making sure they don't make a mistake. But because I do believe that this heifer might be lying out of her teeth, this is just frustrating. So then Alan Jackson would ask her in this, transcript, report, hearing, phone records, you name it. Did you say X, Y, or Z? Well, I might not have said the words, but I know what happened, and this is what happened. She said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, and she hit him with the claw. So then Alan Jackson would say, no, please listen to the question I'm asking. Did you say those words as written or as testified by you in your words to this? No. Now, a big bombshell that came out was that Jen McCabe pretended to be her sister Coco when the feds came by. Now, obviously, the jury doesn't understand that these are federal agents, but they were cops of a different feather, if you catch my drift. She told them she was Coco, and then she ran into the house, and the feds are, well, not as dumb as I always give them credit for. And they're like, hello, we can see you through the front window. Would you like to talk to us? Well, Jen said, I need 10 minutes. Look, I don't have, I need to brush my teeth, my tooths. I've got look, I'm sure, unsure. I'd like to be sure when I talk to the feds. Kind of leaving out that the federal agents had, all of this personal grooming for federal agents. She left out that she called, well, 5 people. Now, the feds, as feds, I'm guessing, are want to do, you know, called back and or told her, hey, to lie to us is kind of a crime, if you will. It is what we like to call a bit of, obstructionation. But she was like, nah, it'll be fine. I'm trying to find my will of excuses, but I have no idea where cleaning Mo decided to put anything. So that being said, we did learn that Jen had lied and said that she had talked to no one in the intervening time. Then she was like, "Oh, I forgot." Here's the problem with Jen's memory. She remembers what she remembers, except what she didn't remember, but her story has never changed. Uh, but people might have written it down wrong because those are their words. Now, what I do like for Jackson this time is that he has pointed out every single, from Officer Tully, or I'm sorry, Trooper Tully to Michael Proctor to Trooper Prince to other people have not written down what Jen claims that has been her story the entire time. So on 2 prongs, he is attacking the state's case because if you believe that Jen McCabe has been maligned and demeaned and absolutely is telling the 100% truth and always has, then the police case was fakakta from the beginning. Now, if you believe that Jen McCabe is a lying liar who lies all the time, then it shows that we can't trust this witness. And this is the only witness, as we learned through this trial, because Carrie Roberts had to admit on the stand that while she about the hypothermia heard about the hypothermia search, she did not hear Karen ask Jen McCabe about the hypothermia search. So Alan Jackson skillfully got across that Jen McCabe is now the only witness that, substantiates this, 6 a.m. Google search. Now, I will be very honest with you. I still don't understand the cell phonology. It doesn't matter. Honestly, to me, here's as a juror who doesn't know the ins and outs, if I'm putting myself in their shoes, it doesn't matter to me that there was, a search. While I get that that paints the bigger picture for the conspiracy and Jen's knowledge and all of that, for me as a juror, if I can't trust this witness, and now I don't trust or understand the cell phone, I'm throwing those 2 things out because as a juror, I'm allowed to give all the evidence whatever weight I feel it deserves. And if I can't trust or understand the cell phone evidence, I'm not going to really touch that because, look, above my pay grade, to be honest. But if I look at all the facts of Jen McCabe's testimony and the multitude of, I never remembered that, I never said that, I forgot to say this has always been my story until it wasn't my story. Really, really interesting. But as a juror, I am not trusting Jen McCabe. And towards the end um, of Jen's cross, she let slip that according to her, the federal investigation of the DOJ is over and she was cleared. Now, I don't know if Jen McCabe just opened the door for the defense to talk about the entire DOJ sort of investigation into all of the shenanigans of all of this. But it is an interesting, thought. I will talk to, well, legal minds or maybe just watch their particular streams because I don't know, and I don't wanna give you guys absolutely, just speculation and ignorance on my part. Now, Brennan tried to rehabilitate, Jen. Again, there was the bombshell that we finally got to see all of these group texts that Jen McCabe, Nicole Albert, Brian Albert, and Matt McCabe were all having the day after where they called John the guy and, were listening in, excuse me, on Carrie Roberts, interview with the state troopers. There was a definite tonal change when Brennan came on to try to rehabilitate, Jen. Now this happened after lunch, um, and wait, we need to backionate just a little bit. Now, Alan Jackson, towards the end, asked Jen why she never, went up to her sister's house, her dear sister, her loving sister. You find someone incapacitated on their front yard. You got Karen, screaming like a banshee. You've got big diesel engines running. You've got all of this going on and no movement in the house. So Alan Jackson asked her, I think, were you not worried? I mean, you tried to now Jen, and it comes out, but not through Jen's volition, that she tried to call Coco twice in between, doing chest compressions on her dear friend John. 'Cause she saw him, and she was at the car, and it was the shock and horror. It was wicked horror, okay? Now, anywho, now Jen did get kind of combative on that one. The rehabilitation was weak sauce McGross, if I gotta say so. Brennan tried to compare, Jen's emotional, like, bestie sort of, Oprah, Gayle kinda talk about their emotions, uh, to kind of contrast with, the very sort of Machiavellian, cover your ass group text. Because those group texts were not emotional, that was like, "Oh, this bitch is taking too long with her interview, and Imma miss basketball game." So it was a very clear dichotomy between the Jen that was in the group text and was very blasé and fuck all of it, and, tell him the guy is there, she's telling him everything, everything, she just talks all talks. And Carrie, "I'm just in Havre, I keep replaying it, I'm so sorry for us." Yes, they actually said, "I'm so sorry for us." Now I get it. Look, I have lost people in my life. I lost my first husband. And the grieving weirdo could look, as a card-carrying member of the Widows Club, you don't go here. Like, seriously, like, we wear pink on Wednesdays and black on Fridays, and you're a grieving weirdo, not a grieving widow. We have cards, we have T-shirts. Stop it. Okay, just stop. Like, and I don't share that to, get sympathy or anything. It's not that. It's that had I not told you, you wouldn't know because I don't wear like, a big old, RIP necklace. Now, if you are a widow and that brings you comfort, absolutely. But this wearing of, this sort of saint martyrness widowdom is just ridiculous. Look, if you lose someone, it doesn't change your internal character. It just makes you also a widow. It's kind of like you can be, you know, head of marketing with, or you can, major in English and minor in French. You know, just because you're minoring in French doesn't mean you are now majoring in French literature. It just means there's a different component there. Then we went on to the hellaciously bored. So basically, Jen McCabe, according to Court TV, was about 80% distrusted. Now, Court TV, Law and Crime, they tend to skew heavily towards prosecutions. And it was interesting to see that many people didn't think that that Jen had been, you know, truthful. So what I will say is at the end of her testimony, Jen was no longer doing the Amber Heard. Yes, when I was there, my dog stepped on a bee and I was in trauma. Besides, I also pledged to donate. I didn't, accept to pledge to donate. So there was not a lot of that. She definitely toward the end, you could tell that either because she had been looking a lot at the jury during direct, during cross, especially during cross. When she wanted the jury to really know what her story that she just always been telling was, she was looking at the jury. But towards redirect and recross, she was no longer looking at them. She had hunched forward a bit. Again, on a purely, trying to give Jen a little bit of grace. I have chronic pain issues. I do not have MS, but I can imagine that, having nerve issues and, pain and possibly loss of some function, that is already hard enough to deal with. So while I think that she wasn't truthful, I can imagine that towards you guys can see it sometimes on stream. Towards the end of the day, I can't always hide if I'm a little bit uncomfortable. So to try to give her just a scotch of grace, perhaps, she was not having a good MS day. I will have to do more research. I don't know what a bad day would look like, but now having a chronic issue, I do understand more now more than ever. I actually get it that, that can really affect a lot of things in your life. That's probably the only thing I will give her grace for, but there you have it. Now, the only other thing that we did have, at the end of the day is we brought in the state toxicology lab expert to do the basic math magician wizardry to get Karen Reed's, blood alcohol level converted from serum to total blood, and then they did the, retrograde blood alcohol level. Now there is a 13 to 18, percent, again, variant between these, results, and then as you further go retrograde into the past to try to further extrapolate these or this, possible blood alcohol level, it is just so unexact. Now, I was promised there would be no more math, so this was in no way my favorite testimony of the day. I do get what the state is trying to bring out, but I do think that, and I hope that the defense brings up that perhaps the difference is if there are any, clinical issues with MS that could have possibly caused her to be able to more quickly process alcohol or less quickly. Again, there was also no testimony from any of the witnesses who were with Karen Reed that night that she was stumbling, passed out, slurring her words, anything like that. Now, it also doesn't take into account that maybe Karen Reed got home, thought John had ditched her, and continued to drink, you know, a bunch. So I do think that Mr. Alessi, or no, I'm sorry, Mr. Yannetti, who is doing cross, will continue with that into Monday. But that is the breakdown. I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry for waiting for day 7, but I figured why not do Jen McCabe in a one big foul swoop. So bye, you guys. I will see you in a little bit. I am going to be doing a Saturday mornings with Mo since, Broken Baker is off with Baby Baker. Bye, you guys.